take this ride.
Hey everybody, this is Doc from the Ebony Ivory Cigar Podcast, and we're coming today for the very first time out of my cigar lounge. So this is Doc's Cigar Lounge. It's been built, it's completely renovated, and it's a great space. So I have the pleasure of having Catherine Carolla with me.
Hey everyone.
So Catherine is a business owner. She also owns property. She runs a company locally here, the Curtain Exchange, and she also used to own 2 mobile gas stations. So today is going to be talking about entrepreneurship, particularly from a female perspective. Welcome, Catherine, to Doc's Cigar Lounge.
Thank you, Doc. Appreciate you having me.
But before we get started, let's let the audience know what we're smoking and drinking. So from the bourbon perspective, these are Blanton's. Blanton's is one of my favorite bourbons. It's light, it's airy, has a little bit of a finish of a vanilla taste. And today I'm smoking a Bandolero Series C for a clandestine. It's a very good cigar. I've had this several times, Bandolero. And you have a Arthur Fuente Double Chateau Torpedo. So again, welcome, Catherine, to Doc's Cigar Lounge.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I've been knowing Catherine for years, so it's a pleasure to have her do the very first interview on the podcast and the very first person that I have invited, to my cigar lounge. I've been blessed and fortunate to have multiple homes, and Catherine, her company, has totally designed, installed all of our custom drapes, curtains, blinds, and handmade rugs. So yes. Thank you, and we get into that a little bit more. So Catherine, let's start from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from.
Well, I'm from Saratoga Springs. My business, I had Curtain and Carpet Concepts, which is my current business that covers all of what Doc has mentioned, designed full home interior. My background is Oriental carpet, strictly importing, and just general business aspects and whatever kind of comes my way. And there was a little bit more of that question, and I'm sorry.
No, that's good, because we'll dive into it. Right now it's kind of on the surface, but we will do a deep dive. One of the things that is impressive is that she's a female business owner and has been very successful at it for decades now.
Decades, right? Yes, 2 decades.
Yeah, 2 decades, which is a phenomenal all by itself. I particularly wanted to start it off with you, with a female business owner, because the plethora of business owners that you might see on most podcasts are men.
Correct, yes.
They just kind of dominate the field. So, I myself didn't have anyone in business from my family. So, I'm in business, but it's kind of, I learned as I went along, had some good examples, mentors. But your background's a little different. So, did you see anything from your parents? How were you introduced into business?
Well, I would say that my grandfather was a rug dealer. He was employed by Jacobson's for decades. Wrote several books regarding how to buy an Oriental carpet.
Really?
Which, and shockingly, they started out of downtown Syracuse, and they're known all over the world. And he was just a very charismatic man. And, with that, I really enjoyed, him telling stories about, business, him traveling all over the world, purchasing carpets. That kind of led me into, then my mother was the first female Oriental rug business owner. She enjoyed it. We grew up. She was a homemaker and got into business and enjoyed it. And I think I just kind of trailed along behind her. I didn't think I was going to be a rug dealer, but, I also didn't think I was going to be a gasoline dealer either. I just happened to, opportunities knocked, and I decided to answer the door and learn about it. So that's just how all of that kind of snowballed into many other aspects.
So you grew up watching your mom run a rug business and seeing what that was was like firsthand? Did she like take you to the store when you was a baby, kid? Are you were in the background?
No, actually, I kind of got rooked in, as other things I have. And I was actually in college taking accounting, and she needed somebody to do all of her paperwork since she was not very organized in that department. And so I started doing all of her paperwork and just really got interested in the subject of Oriental carpets and the history. And, you know, Oriental carpets have been around since thousands of years, right back to the Pazric carpet. So I found that it was very, very interesting, and I could learn and just, you know, explore more knowledge there. And I just decided to take it into different business aspects, such as the curtains.
Yeah, and I might add, very expensive.
It's luxury. Just like these cigars and this bourbon we're drinking, it's all about luxury. It's enjoying your comforts, and part of your comforts can be your home.
Yes, yes. So that kind of gives us a background on your grandfather, to your mother, to yourself. What about your father?
My father, actually, he worked for UPS. He was upper management, and then he retired very early, 44 years old, and then decided to, and then he got into, started buying property, fixing them up, rehabs, and that's how I got into the end of buying properties is, you know, I learned from my father what to do, what not to do, because that happens. And it really had to do with a feel, just like all businesses. If you really have a good, strong feel about it, you can learn and turn, you know, different businesses around and make them yours.
Now, did you ever go on any of your father's? You say he was buying properties, renovating properties. Did you go on any of his renovation projects as a kid?
No, because as a kid I was older at this point.
Okay.
I was older. My father, when he started doing his, well, let's dial it back a little bit in the fact that when he was 44, he decided to buy a gas station in Queensbury, New York. After a short period of time, he realized he really didn't like people. So it was not a good fit for him. However, you know, it's something that I enjoyed. I decided to learn about it. Went to Mobile Exxon School. Yes, there is such a thing. It's in Fairfax, Virginia. At that time, I decided to learn about it and proceed. I actually bought a secondary mobile station at that time. At this point, I was in my 20s.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I was.
So you're in your 20s,
25 or 26.
and you got 2 mobile gas stations. Now, during that time, how many female gas station proprietors were there?
There weren't any.
So you were the first.
So I was the first as I know of it
like
in the capital area.
Trailblazer.
Yeah, same thing. Same thing in the rug business. There wasn't any female rug dealers at that particular time.
Okay, so you're young. You're in your early 20s, running 2 gas stations.
Yep.
Now, what about your childhood? Were you born and raised in the city? Like, you know, what other people's social skills would you pick up along the way to bring you to the forefront of the gas stations? You know, I'm a city boy.
Yes, right. No, that's a funny story. So first of all, I was born in Parrish, New York. So I was a little country kid.
Never heard of it.
You wouldn't. You wouldn't. So I was a, you know, barefoot country kid, like as you would think of them. You know, running around on hundreds of acres, you know, just enjoying. I had brothers, so we got into everything. I mean, if there was something to get into, we did it. My father decided to uproot us from this hundreds and hundreds of acres running free, like little wild children. He planted us in Clifton Park in suburbia. So here we are, these country kids, never had, you know, seeing other children other than school, and we get plopped into the middle of Clifton Park, you know, and
like suburbia.
Suburbia.
So when you were on these hundreds of acres, did you have like farm animals?
We had cows, we had horses, you know, and we used to jump out of barns and swim in creeks. I mean, you're talking about freedom.
Now this is why your father worked at UPS, right?
Yes.
So,
he worked in Syracuse Hub.
Yeah, so Was he after the agricultural tax break to offset income?
He probably was at that time. I don't know for a fact.
Sounds smart to me.
But he was born and raised as a farmer himself. My grandfather, my grandfather was a farmer. My father now lives on that farm.
Oh wow!
And,
nice.
Which is runs along the Onondaga River in Syracuse. One of the largest plots in that area. And he just loved the agriculture. It was just part of our family background. Nice. And then once he left Queensbury, sold the mobiles to myself, then he went back to Syracuse and he resumed the farming.
Yeah, I mean, so if anybody out there finds a gentleman farm, in the New York area that I can buy, let me know. That's one of the things I have an interest in.
I don't think you want to be in,
well, Pettiville,
New York. You do not want to be there.
I don't want to work the farm, just own the farm. There are benefits that I would like to take advantage of. And plus, my kids like farm animals. Not that we want to live there. We just go there and visit it and come on back.
Go in, play.
Yeah. It's a nice weekend getaway.
Yeah.
So now, is it after you came here, so after your father sold the acreage and then came over to suburbia, is that when your mom started her business, or was it prior to that?
My mother started her business in, I want to say the year would have been early 90s. So my mother was a homemaker. We were, raised by my mother. She was a stay-at-home mother. She would work a little bit on the weekends, waitressing or whatever she wanted to do at that particular time just to get out of the house. We were all graduating. So we were all graduating
high school.
High school.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were graduating high school.
And then you made the transition to suburbia.
No, I was in second grade when we went into suburbia. Yeah, so I was raised in Clifton Park.
Got it.
Shenandoah graduate, high school. So going into the rat race of like a small college compared to where we came from.
So all right. So
my mother decided to get into business when we really didn't need a homemaker anymore.
So now you're in college and graduate, or going to college, and your mom gets into business. Which is a good dovetail, because a lot of people ask, does education prepare you, to be an entrepreneur or business owner? Now, you mentioned that you were taking accounting. What was your major in college?
Accounting and marketing.
Oh, really?
Yes.
All right. So did those courses, which is accounting, marketing, economics, organizational behavior, right? All the classes I could think of, did they help prepare you for business?
I think you're going to really be surprised because you probably won't like my answer.
I don't know what your answer
is. But actually, I failed accounting the first time, and miserably, may I say. And so then I got into working into my mother's store. An accountant actually came, showed me what he needed from me, and it was more like hands-on learning. And so once he sat down with me and I knew what he needed monthly, and I started doing it, I went back to my accounting class, didn't have to read the book, and I aced both accounting 1 and 2. So it really, for me, was a hands-on experience. It really wasn't something I could read because I tried that.
I don't disagree with you, right? So your answer doesn't shock me, because I actually believe in that. So I'm not an advocate that formalized education, particularly our K through 12, and in some parts are...
It makes you critically think, but some people don't learn that same way.
Well, yeah. I think it best prepares you to be an employee. It doesn't necessarily prepare you what you need to be an employer. And there's a big difference. As a finance major in finance degrees, if you go to college and you want to major in finance, they would teach you how to manage a department's, $5 million budget, how to do spreadsheets, how to read all the ledger, things of that nature, how to manage people in that department. But they would never teach you anything personal about your own finances. It won't teach you about retirement. It won't teach you about investments, the stock market, any of those things that's going to be pertinent for yourself, let alone your own business. So it'll teach you the finance department aspect, but what if you need to go get a business loan yourself? Right. Most people who major in finance or accounting cannot even write a business plan. Trust me, I see them.
Right.
So I think our educational system is well versed in, I wouldn't even call it learning. I call it memorization and regurgitation. You memorize.
I've heard this before.
Yeah. You memorize what's going to be on the test, and then you have to regurgitate it. They don't necessarily even care deeply what your methodology is, what your way of thinking, because there's always more than one answer to any question. But they just want you to select A, B, C, or D that's presented to them. Not necessarily if you could be thinking outside the box, but still be correct. You know. So it's, in my opinion, it's not a place that teaches you how to be an autonomous thinker. It teaches you how to assimilate, follow the rules, and this is what we need to do to become a good employee. So it's interesting that before you got into business, you failed accounting. But then once you were actually doing accounting for your mom's business, which later transitioned to your own, you got it. Right.
Same thing with Business Law 1 and 2. So I did take Business Law 1 and 2, You failed
that too?
No, I actually did not. But you know, after understanding how business worked and the dynamics of business and just doing every day in and out of business, it just helped me apply what I learned doing it to, you know, actually, you know, it just made so much more sense for me, you know, when I was actually in the class. And, you know, I should read the book. I didn't read the book, but I did ace it. So that's all that mattered.
Yes. And that's good for a lot of people to hear, because people need to hear that there's alternative paths to being successful. You know, there are alternative paths to starting a business. You don't necessarily need a college degree to be successful in business. Actually, if you do statistics, you'll find out that most successful business owners dropped out of college or did not go to college. They learn by, you know, people say they're bootstraps. You know, you know, myself, I'm a
You have to work on feel. I mean, for me personally, and again, this is me personally, I work on feel. So when I feel very strongly about something, I do a little bit of research, but that's really on the ground. It's not about research, picking up a book, reading about how to run this type of business, or, you know, how to, you know, fix this challenge. It really has to do with feel. And so that's how I tend to work. And the same thing, when I've ignored my feelings, it's bitten me. So always always think about that. You know, if you feel like something's astray or wrong or right, you just walk away the opposite direction, or you fix it.
Mine wasn't so much as feel, it was more of self-interest, you know. So I knew at some point I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had aspirations of being a business owner. So in my business classes, I took the perspective, how is this going to benefit me, right? I wanted to learn the tax code because I was never taught the tax code. Well, I wanted to learn the tax code because I want to figure out how can I best benefit from the tax code. What are the incentives that the government allows for me to get tax breaks, things of that nature. Accounting, same way with you. You know, I need to know how to do my own books. It wasn't for a test or a paper. This is what I want to get out of the class in particular to me. And sometimes I even go to my professor and say, hey, I know you got this assignment, this is what you want us to do, but if I can find the same objectives as this assignment or project, but do something that's going to be pertinent for me, can I do that? And I was never ever told no. So that's good.
That's a shocker.
So you transition from working with your mom in her rug business. Now, I know you also had a rug business, but did you go rug business next, or did you go gas station next? What was your first business?
Well, okay, so my first business would have been, let me think for a second. And I actually went, so it was my mother's rug business. So it was her business, not mine. And I went into the gas station. So I had to go to school, learn the gas station. Then I actually decided to open a children's riding apparel store.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so let's go back one more step.
I don't want to lose the gas. I don't want to lose the gas station.
So the gas station is not that. So I learned about the gas stations. I decided that I wanted to have a very clean, well-run gas station. But, you know, opportunities.
Very, very clean, well run. So what made your gas stations different from other gas stations?
I wanted women to be attracted to going to the gas station, have it lit up, feeling safe, the gas pumps wiped down so they didn't smell like gasoline when they pump gas, and cleanest bathrooms in the area. So their children who have to go to the bathroom, they weren't going into some, you know, crummy bathroom, you know, where you had to feel like, you know, you had to wipe everything down first. So I literally hired a gentleman just to do that.
So when a mom or female say, hey, you know what, I got to pull over the side of the road, I got to go to the bathroom.
They knew where to go.
She thought of your bathroom.
They thought of my bathroom. And the funny thing is I had several women come up to me and say that. They said, we literally know exactly the cleanest bathrooms, and you're it. So, and the funny thing was...
Now, did this relate or transition to sales and profit?
Yeah, because then the kids would go in, they would be buying their, you know, candy bar, their water, coffee. Everything was clean.
So the bathroom brought them in.
Everything, yes. Because if the bathroom is clean, they knew they could eat at my station, they could drink their coffee, they knew everything was going to be clean.
Now, how did you get into the gas station business?
My father. So my father retired early, UPS. He decided, what a great idea. We're going to open a, you know, we're going to buy this gas station right off of exit 19, I-87. And it was really funny because he ran it for about 5 years. Okay. And
he only had the one though, right?
Yeah, he only had the one.
Okay.
And the funny part was, and again, I mentioned a little bit earlier, is that he really, he's not a people person. And so it was really funny. Here you're supposed to be, you know, working at your own station. Somebody came in this one time. I used to go and visit my father just to say good morning. At that particular time, I was up. I had a house up north. Okay. And so I would pass the his gas station. So I'd stop and say hello. And you know, this one time, I was there, and my father, somebody had asked about an ATM, and ATMs were very new back then. Remember that. Another advantage to making money. You know, you need money, you charge money to get money. So the funny part is somebody peeked their head in and said, hey, you know, do you have an ATM? And my father spelt out Stewart's. Literally, S-T-E-W-A-R-T, down the street on the left.
To the competition.
Yes, so he's sending people to the competition, and I thought, oh no, that's not good, because he could have just made an easy $2 just for them to put their, you know, card in and retrieve money. Now, remind you, a gas station already collects cash. Oh, I know. So, you know, how easy is this to pull it out of the safe, put it in the ATM, and then it automatically goes into your bank account?
I have an ATM.
Yes, I know, I saw. So, you know, that, again, very easy way to make money. In gas station, you're getting pennies on gas. And, you know, the whole idea is getting people in the store to spend money. So, again, if you had an ATM. Fast forward. My father ran that station, I would say maybe 5 years. He decides his father died. He was going to take over the estate in Syracuse.
The family farm.
The family farm.
Okay.
So he wanted to leave. Well, my father has a big problem with selling stuff. Okay, so I decided he had gave me a proposition to buy the gas station from him. So I decided to go ahead and buy the gas station from him. Mind you, I don't know anything about gas, but you know, it's hazardous waste. But I decided, well, that's fine.
So you go into a gas station as an owner, knowing nothing about gas.
Nothing. In the meantime, I have to go to a mobile school, which again in Fairfax, Virginia.
Were you the only female in the class?
Yes.
Okay.
The only female owner. There was other employees, managers, that sort of thing, but not many.
How was you received as being, so now you're amongst men as far as owners? Yeah. Right? And this is during the 80s?
No. Let's not date me that much. Okay? Let's not date me that much. No, would be the 90s.
All right. So this is during the 90s, which is still very men dominant.
Yes.
We hadn't come to, being woke and giving people. And so how were you received in class, seeing that you're the only female owner there?
Well, I was received, thank God there was a lot of management. So, you know, they were really impressed that I was a female owner, and they were managers, so they didn't own, you know. But I was received pretty well there at school. It really, and you have to remember, again, the rug business was male dominant. So I was already, you know, already understanding and acclimated to that environment of a male dominated, you know, type of business.
So wait, let me stop you there. So what was your mindset? So did you, I've heard other females and minorities said that they feel like they always had to be
better.
Yeah,
better.
Better prepared. They had to be twice as good, if not 3 or 4 times as good. Did you have that weight on you? Did you feel that way?
No. And the only reason why is I was raised in a very tough environment. I had all brothers. So, you know, I already felt like I had an edge on that because, you know, again, a lot of my female friends always said I had more of a male brain. So
I don't know if that's good or bad.
I don't really care. You know, that's the difference. When you get to that, when you get there, you're like, I don't care. I have a job to do, and you're going to do it the best of your ability. And the other aspect of it is I'm not a person that wants to fail. So I'm not going to fail.
Okay.
You know?
So when you took over your father's, when you bought it from him, right? Well, before I move forward, he made you buy it from him.
Yes, I bought it from him.
All right.
The funny part is he said he was selling it to me at cost till we got to the lawyer's office, and he was like, well, what do you want to do with the profit? And I'm like, whoa, what happened here?
Now,
my dad.
Now, did you have to get bank financing, or did your father finance it for you?
That one, my father financed.
So that's owner's financing. Right. So did he charge you interest?
Geez, you know, I don't recall, but if it was really good because he wanted out. The problem is my father, great guy, but you know, I had bought a building from him prior to that. Actually, a 2-family house in Waterford I had bought from him because he was going to lose money. I made money, he lost money, and I made money when I sold my mobiles too.
Yeah, so you actually grew the business, right? So you go from 1 mobile station to 2 mobile. So how did you decide to grow your business to expand it to a second mobile gas station?
The reason why I grew it to the second station is for the fact that I took number 1 out of 1,400 stations within the first 3 years. That was huge for the fact that, 1, I was the only female at the time.
So you took number 1?
Took number 1.
Where was the ranking when your father had it before he sold it to you?
Oh God, I don't know if it even ranked. To be honest with you, so, my father he liked to run it cheap. I was more about investing to get the return.
Okay.
So we have very different mindsets business wise. And so we were doing really well with Exit 19. I decided to purchase a station at Exit 18 that was having some financial issues. So I decided to purchase that as well.
So how did you find out about it? How did you find it was for sale?
ExxonMobil came to me.
The company, corporate?
Yes, yeah. Corporate came to me and said,
hey, this store sales is not that great.
We have a diamond in the rough. And my answer was, I don't know how much polishing I can do to get anywhere near the shine.
They were like, wait a minute. We saw what you did with this first mobile station.
Yeah. Let me dump this other in your lap.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So now you are expanding your business to include a second mobile gas station.
Yes.
So on the second one.
In the middle of that, though, I had just purchased a piece of property that I bought from a bank, rehabbed it, and then opened a children's riding apparel store.
So now you're running 2 mobile gas stations and a children's riding apparel store.
And I was managing Jacobson's Oriental Carpets because my mother retired. And they brought the organization that my grandfather used to be the president of to Saratoga. But the only way they were going to buy it from my mother is if I signed a contract to stay.
See,
so now I got 4 going on, and I'm in my 20s.
And see, that's why I like the number 86,400. You know, there's 86,400 seconds in a day. What are you doing with it? How are you maximizing the opportunities that are presented to you? And here you're running 2 mobile stations, a retail store, and a rug business.
Yes.
Now, going back to the second mobile gas station you're expanding, how did you purchase that? Did you finance
I
it?
went financing, yes.
Now, through the banks or through mobile
No,
itself?
I went through the banks.
Okay.
But at that particular time, I had already a relationship with another bank since I had opened the riding apparel store.
Mm-hmm.
I had a relationship with that bank, so then I financed that mobile through that same bank.
Did they make you write a business plan?
No, at that time they were really good about. They did not. So
Well, you already had proof in the pudding.
I had proof in the pudding, and the fact that I was
store.
successful. You know, they knew the numbers on the first station.
Were you banking with the first mobile station that you have your account set up through the bank that financed you for the second one?
No.
So it's a totally different bank.
Totally different bank. Yes.
Wow. Now, what made you decide to go after a different bank versus the bank you were banking with?
It was really had to do with their loan structure. The loan structure was phenomenal. Their rates were phenomenal. They were all about female business.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to invest in the area.
So here you are. You're in mobile. You've gone through their ownership program, successful.
Mm-hmm.
You got a company running successful. You go into a bank for a loan for a second a company. Did anybody ask you where did you graduate from?
No.
Did anyone ask you what your grades were?
No.
Right. So your report card was your profit and loss statement,
yes.
right? Your balance and income sheet.
Yes.
This is what I owe. This is what I'm making money. This
yes.
is my profit at the end of the day. Here's my arbitrage, the difference between what I'm paying in debt versus what I'm making.
Yeah.
I think that's very important, especially for those who are aspiring to be business owners, particularly female business owners, I think so much emphasis is put on what school did you go to?
Right.
What degree do you have?
Right.
What was your GPA? And I tell people all the time, after you get your first job, nobody cares about your GPA.
No.
It's what have you done?
Right. It's your record. It's
where's
record.
your evidence, right? Show me evidence that you have the skill set, the capacity, the prowess to do what you're saying that you're going to be able to do while you justify your financing.
Right.
Because now it's all about risk and minimizing risk from a financier, the bank itself.
Right.
All right. So, did you need financing for your retail store?
For the horse,
yeah.
the riding apparel?
Yes.
No, I personally financed that.
From your mobile gas?
From my ex at 19. The gas business was really good back in the day, I'm not going to lie.
Well, people say we don't make money from gas stations.
Today they don't, not unless you have a mass amount of gas stations.
Okay.
The dynamics have changed a lot. And the problem is in today's business is if you can't chameleon yourself and change with times, and then you become, you just become, you're like a historic animal, okay? So you're the dinosaur. Mm-hmm. So you have to be able to change with the times. You have to acclimate with the times. You have to acclimate with the dynamics that are going on. And I was able to do that, again, on feel. I've always told you that. It's always on feel. And if you don't, then you're going to be the dinosaur and you're going to die. And that's what's happening with a lot of businesses today is they just don't change.
Yeah, if you're not evolving, you're dying.
No.
Right? So either you're evolving intentionally, right? Because you want to stay current, you want to stay up to date, you want to also be in tune with your customers, or you're going to evolve where you just die, right?
Or you die.
So you're constantly evolving.
Evolve or die.
Yeah,
those are your two options. Yes.
Now, where were you at business-wise through 2008, 2009?
2008, 2009 was a rough.
Because I bring that up because that was
a rough time. So let's go again. Let's dial it back again. So in 2005, I want to say was that time gets away from me. I sold my mobile stations to Jolly Associates.
Okay, both of them.
One I had given back to mobile because it was leaking into the ground. And I called, we tried to resolve it. Yeah. So finally I had to call DEC, EPA, and, resolve that. I ended up giving that back. And also they were going to be putting a roadway through there. But I didn't lose money, so that was a good thing. I didn't want to lose any more gas either. So I went back to 19, really ramped that station up. At this time, Mobil and Exxon, I guess Mobil sold to Exxon. Yeah. Exxons are the tigers. They're tough, so a lot of dynamics changed. They were tripling rents. they were really squashing people out of the business. And that's where I went to. You had to have multiple stores if you were going to survive in the industry. I saw a lot of gasoline dealers lose their shirt because they just didn't want to modify their business. I decided to put a bid out to, I had 3 different big companies wanting my station. So literally I sat down with all 3 in one day, made a deal, and it was sold.
What year was this?
I want to say it was like 2004 or 5, somewhere in there.
Okay, so this is before the 2008 financial melee. So you got out. So
let's go back to that.
Okay.
So you had asked me that question about where was I in 2008. So here it was, at the same time I was selling my ExxonMobil station, there was an opportunity to purchase Curtain Exchange.
Okay.
Curtain Exchange was it was a franchise originally out of New Orleans until Katrina, and they moved their whole facility to Dallas, Texas. I had heard that it was for sale. The woman who owned it was a dear friend. I know her a lot more after the fact, not, during
And this is 2008?
At this point it's 2005.
2005, right?
2005.
After you sold
after I sold the mobile stations.
Now, after you sold the mobile station, do you still own your writing apparel?
Yes.
And are you still in the rug business?
Yes.
Okay, so you offloaded by 2005 the 2 mobile gas stations.
Yes.
But you still have your retail shop and you still have your rug.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so the rug, again, wasn't mine. I was managing.
Okay.
So at that particular time, Jacobson's lease came up. I decided to put in a resignation paper to Jacobson's just before my mobile station sold.
Okay.
Just because I was making more money doing my own thing than actually managing for them. And that was more like a fun thing for me.
You were like the Elon Musk, right? Your CEO, manager.
I don't know what I was, but I don't know how I did it all, but I did.
You got the Tesla, space.
I've got
space
kids
program.
going on. Yeah. I had every dynamic happening.
Okay, so
yes.
So you see this franchise.
So I see this franchise opportunity. So I had a few designers who knew me in the business.
From the rug business.
From the rug business.
Okay.
And had said, hey, Cathy, I know you're in the midst of selling your mobile stations. There's this great opportunity. The woman who owns a curtain store franchise, she's closing her doors on Tuesdays, not making a go of it. I think it'd be a great opportunity for you, and going on. I said, what the heck do I know about curtains?
Well, what did you know about gas stations?
And that's what their reply was, what the heck did you know about gas stations? And at that point I said, you're right. So what do? I struck up a deal. I did not have the franchise approval yet. So I struck up a deal.
You buy the business.
I buy the deal. I said I would move her out since she was closing their doors anyway on Tuesday. I moved her out Monday evening personally. Okay. And then I hopped on a plane and then went to Houston to talk to Georgina, who was a tough nut. She was the franchise owner of all of them at the time, and had to convince her why I should be owning the franchise that I already bought.
That's kind of like putting the cart in front of the horse,
a little bit, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now I want to pause. I do want to come back to this, but where are you family-wise? Like, do you have kids? You have kids and all this? You're married and all this?
Yes.
Because some people think that they have to make a choice, right? Either they have to pursue businesses and not be married, not have kids, put it on hold, or they have to do the family life and business will come later. Yeah. But you're doing both.
I'm doing both. So that was always the joke. The joke is at this particular time I have in my 20s 2 kids. The joke was every time a vendor would come to the gas station, he would say, or he or she, mostly he, would say, oh, where's the owner? And I'm the one who's running around the gas station with a child in a backpack. So all my kids always went to work with me, always.
So you're married, you got a home life, you have kids, and you're involved in 4 businesses successfully, right? Yes. So you take your father's gas station, which was not ranked, and you make it ranked number 1. You expand it. And so now you sold it, and now you're going into the franchise. Let's pick it back up. So she eventually said yes.
So eventually, that tough nut, and she was a tough nut, Georgina. Love her, Tough nut.
Okay.
She finally agreed. You know, I had to convince her. Again, it took me a little bit, but, you know, she was convinced because she had a business model that she thought would work, but I had to get her to think outside the box and say, you know, this is not the only business model. This is not the only way, you know, it can look and, you know, act and make money.
So did she have the same perspective? What did you know about curtains?
Oh, of course. Yes, she was a European designer. So European, you know, she was a European designer. She, you know, she had, it was her baby, and I totally understood it. But at the same time as, you know, there was more opportunities to make money, so she needed to see that. And after I got it up and running, she was realizing that she was because we have to pay a portion, you know, franchise fees on your sales. She was realizing, wow, I'm making all this extra money in all these other aspects and these other areas that she didn't want other business to get into.
And you're taking other risks, right?
And I'm taking other risks,
because the previous business was shutting its doors.
Shutting the doors.
So she was
going to
lose
zero.
She was going to lose revenue.
Yes, no
so
money.
So now you're coming in and said, hey, wait a minute. I can keep the doors open. I can bring value
to the business.
To the business that is not already being, you know, brought to fruition, right?
Right.
And by the way, I'm taking a risk. I'm putting up my money. I'm buying the business. I'm buying the inventory.
I'm moving it. I'm building it out.
All you have to do is sit back and collect the check.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you're into drapes.
So now I'm into curtain and drapes.
Okay.
Nothing I knew of at the particular time. And it's not like you can go to school. It wasn't like the mobile school where they go in, they teach you how things are done, how things are put together. I'm literally in the thick of it.
Learning on the fly.
Learning on the fly. Yes.
Okay.
And so I'm learning on the fly, and I decided to start talking to some, you know, ladies. You know, these were Italian women in Albany, and they were seamstress. And I would sit there and talk with them, and you know, they would talk, you know, in their Italian language, and I would have to decipher half of what they were saying.
Oh, they didn't have Google Translator there?
Oh, no, they didn't have Google Translator. No, this is way before. I think I at that time, cellular was like flip phones or, you know.
The big Motorola's?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a little after that. It was like,
the little antenna.
Yeah. It was like you had to go A, B, C.
Yeah. I remember those. You flip it up, pull the antenna up.
It was not as easy, you know, back then.
I remember the cell phone it was in a box. You carry it on a shoulder strap, you know.
How we survived back then, I don't know. But, you know, it was really funny. I started learning about how drapes were put together, and it really was. It's like you learn from, you know, making mistakes. I mean, that was it. You learn from making mistakes, and, you know, and when you have costly mistakes, you learn really quick.
Yeah, it's coming out of your pocket, right?
It's coming out of my pocket.
Yeah.
So I learned, and, you know, from there we grew and added other type of, you know, different dimensions to the business. Now we're into wallpaper, we're into, you know, different types of shades company. So things have grown and taken shape many times and different ways. We've expanded. We've, you know, completely changed the whole business model, leveraged out, started working on volume. That came with time. And during that time, let's see, I ended up selling the children's riding apparel. And the only reason, by the way, I opened that is because I had a daughter who was a teeny little thing, and I couldn't find anything for her, and she was in all these different programs, and so I thought, why not just open it?
Yeah, I mean, you saw opportunity. So if your daughter was struggling, also means that other daughters were struggling finding outfits as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, mind you, you have to understand, Saratoga is very, the equestrian world is a very different world, and so when I opened my store, which was called Saratoga Saddle Up at that time, and I really looked at my customer was going to be the backyard rider, okay, and see, back then, I would have some of the horse reps would come in, and they're like, "Oh, you're the backyard rider. Like you're the bad person. You know, you weren't serious in the subject of riding." And you know, finally, I had said to this one rep, I said to her, I said, "Do you realize how much money it is to ride a horse, take care of a horse, own a horse, board a horse?" I said, "And there's a lot of backyard riders in Saratoga, so that is going to be my market." So
you saw a niche that was not being served.
Not being met. So anything that was glittery, anything that was pink, purple, loud, that's what I carried. Because everybody back at this particular time, it was either your staple colors were green or it was navy blue. Those were your classic colors. And if you weren't within that box, you weren't serious.
Right.
But that's not true.
Right.
And so that's what I did. And all my customers were. They wanted the sparkly little glitter to paint on their hoof horses, you know, feet. And then anything that's with sparkles or little horses running up the jod pants. So that's what I did. I went and found that and just built a store with it.
Well, you know, that's a nugget that I want to drop here, because that's a conversation that I have with my children now. Like, I don't ask them, you know, what's your passion, and therefore you can make a career out of your passion. I've always thought that was a incorrect motivation. I teach my children, find where you can add value.
Right.
And then you exchange the value that you bring for the Benjamins in their pocket. Then you take your money and you go pay for whatever passion or whatever you love to do.
Right.
You know, I love to sit on the back of the boat and smoke cigars and listen to jazz music.
Right.
Nobody's going to pay me to do that.
No.
Right? But I can bring value to customers and clients through my business. They give me money, and then I take that money and I fund and do what I love to do.
Right.
You know, I think that's a faux pas that a lot of people go to school and say, hey, what do you love? You should do what you love.
Right.
Now, if what you love bring value,
sure,
go for it. But that's usually not the case. You know, you usually love to do something as a hobby. You know, you don't want to be bothered with employees and so forth in what you love. You just want to do it.
Right.
So if you can find out how to add value, you know, if you're in a town that needs water, bring water, right? Sell water. Right. It's not that anybody love to produce water, but people will pay for that. So I'm glad you brought that up. Since I brought up employees, let's dovetail to employees. So I would imagine that you've had several employees, gas station, the salary, the current exchange. What's your ideology about employees? How do you manage employees? How do you deal with employees? Because right now, that's a challenge.
That is a challenge.
Right?
You know?
So what did you do back then, and what did you learn, and how does that apply to today?
Well, every business really did take a different type of employee structure. So, you know, with the when you're in luxury, you're getting a whole different type of employee coming in. You know, they value nice things. They like to work in a nice environment. The chance of things come up missing or out of place, you know.
Are you talking about employee theft?
A little bit.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, in a luxury environment, you tend, not fully, you know, say 100%, but you tend not to have problems.
Okay.
I never had any problems with any of my, either the rug store. We never had any problems. Never had any problems. I mean, with any of the
rugs
horse,
or cordon or the salary.
That.
So what
now,
about
the
gas station?
That was a different
That's not a luxury,
yes,
you know.
No, it's not a luxury.
Even though mobile gas is very expensive.
Yes,
you know.
unfortunately, and again, I'm not trying to categorize and say, not trying to be generalizing, but what I have found in my own experience is the fact that desperate people do desperate things.
Yes.
I try to have conversations about, you know, coming to me if you're in a desperate situation to alleviate, you know, potential problems. Many of times I didn't have that if I had those conversations with certain employees, but you always had that handful that you were always turning around. You know, you understand going into it that you know, there's going to be a certain level of theft. There is. It's just managing it.
Yeah.
You know, it really is. It's managing it.
So how did you manage it?
Oh, I didn't say that was easy. It's funny. We just had a conversation about that the other day. Yeah. You know, it really has to do with, you know, just always being ahead of it, you know, and, you know, trying to get the least damage as possible. I would say probably my worst experience is when I was having, I think it was Nick, my last child. And I
child
was
number four. So we started this conversation on 2 children at the gas station. Now we're on child number 4. So you was always producing, whether business or personally.
All right. Well, You know, you still have to grow your tribe.
Yeah.
You still have to grow your tribe. And the funny part is I was literally in the hospital with Nick. And I remember sitting there. Now I'm delirious. I'm delirious. They have me on some type of medication for Nick because I had a cesarean. And and I had to get back to work. I literally I worked a full day of work before having my kids. That's not something I planned. It just happened. Anyway, the funny part is I'm sitting there at night looking at all of their transactions, and one just was sticking out like a sore thumb.
Money.
Yeah. Yes, money. And I had one cashier, the night guy, and he was just, really taking advantage, and a lot, a lot.
It wasn't $5.
No, it wasn't $5.
Maybe he needed 50 cents for the bus.
No, several thousand.
Ooh.
Well, I'm on my maternity so-called leave, which was like 2.5 days. And he was just raking me over the coals, and so I had to.
Now, back in Detroit, we have ways of taking care of that.
That's not as. We don't do that in Queensbury at the time.
Okay.
So I had to, call a couple of my, trooper friends and meet me at the station so we could review all the tapes, review everything, and finally they got him, arrested him, but I was like. He's got to go, or I'm going to be, in the clink tonight.
now, I have quite a few.
My patience is much like they got short during the mobilizations.
Well, I have things that you just don't mess with, right? You don't mess with my family.
Yeah.
You don't mess with my money.
No.
And you don't mess with my food. That's a long story behind that. But, I'm very, very slow to hire. I do a lot of due diligence, at least try to my best ability, but I fire very quickly. I hire slow, fire quickly, and as you have seen, I have cameras everywhere.
Right.
Cameras and locks.
So, and again, going back to, technology isn't like it is today.
Yeah, I even have camera on keystrokes.
Yes, okay. So I had the best cameras, you could purchase at that particular time, but again,
they were analog, probably.
Yeah, it was just like the type of technology that they had, in the 2000s isn't like it is now. Here we are, 2023, and it was great for its time. Right. You could literally. I think what happens is people. They get desensitized when the camera's around, and clearly that happened. I mean, I had one gentleman who literally saw him take the money out of the register. It shows it on the register doing a safe drop, but the safe drop went into his pocket.
On camera.
On camera.
Yeah.
And, when he was, confronted by that, he said, no, not me. And I'm like, well, you're there. It's showing. And I was just like, you better get him out of here. But that's it.
To combat that, at least once a month, probably a lot more, I would say probably 3-4 times a month, I would show my employees, hey, this was on camera, X, Y, and Z.
You can do that all day long. It doesn't matter. So in a gas station, it's different because they're handling money. Yeah. They're going to find different ways because that's all they have is time to think of different ways to, kind of like deviate from the system.
Though they're on camera.
Even though they're on camera. I mean, you can show a car paying and, in cash, and then your employee says, oh, they ran off, and you have them on camera. So it's, it's different. It really has to do with when you're hiring, you have to ask certain questions, get personal, really talk to your employee and, ask them if there's any, like, family dynamics that might, impact the job.
Well, I don't hire employees that have financial problems. That's part of my thing.
But you don't know that. They're not gonna. They're not gonna always tell you. Yes, you can sit there and dig and be like.
We do background checks.
Yeah. Well, okay. Again, you got to remember back in the 2000s. That didn't happen. That you didn't have the technology that's at your hand and disposal today. You can literally plug their name in and you can get them everything from LinkedIn to criminal.
So it's amazing. Speaking of LinkedIn and it's amazing what people put on social media and then go apply for a job?
Well, that's a whole different that's a whole other podcast in itself, in the fact that, yeah, people have to be more careful today.
Yeah.
Because the thing is like, you know, with any of those media digits and, you know, the digital aspects, you have to be careful.
It's a footprint.
You know, it is footprint.
Yeah.
You know, I tell all my kids today, they have to be careful because, you know, you never know what kind of a job you want to get later on. Now, mind you, so far, most of our kids are entrepreneurs. Some are not.
Did you expect your kids to be entrepreneurs? Given what they've seen their whole life, I mean, they're playing in the back of the store.
Yeah,
you know, they're on your waist or on your back. Did you have an expectation for them to be entrepreneurs?
No, I just figured they'd fall into it because they saw the freedoms that I had. I was able to, you know, run successful businesses, you know, make money for my family, you know, to take care of my children. They saw that their mother took care of their children, and I guess I also really with my daughters especially, you know, I really told them that, you know, it's you have to make this. Always, you know, make your money. You know, you want to be able to be, you know, independent. Independence is a beautiful thing.
What challenges have you found come in contact with, overcame, that you can say this is definitely because I am a female business owner?
I don't. That's a tough one. I'm not sure. So I guess I never put myself in a category. I never put myself in a category that I am a female business owner versus I'm a business owner. I never labeled myself that way.
Do you think others label?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I was going to go into the next one. The only time that it would be brought to the forefront is when somebody was upset with my success. For instance, I had a gasoline dealer at the bottom of the hill from me, not even a mile away. And he had called my district manager at the time because they managed the mobiles just to make sure you're within your your franchise, you know, agreement. And I'll never forget, this gentleman had said that, excuse my language, but that bitch on the corner doesn't understand how this works, because at this time I'm making all kinds of money and he was upset his sales were going down. And, you know, he goes, what does she know about gas? And my response was, well, you know, I'm the worst type. I'm a rug dealer.
I would have said, look, she obviously knows something. She's making money.
I'm doing okay. So it never, that was, I think, the only time.
Because he's at the bottom of the hill.
Yes. And
but you're number one. And
I'm number one. And he's at the bottom of the hill. But he was a generational gasoline dealer. So just like the rug dealers, they're usually generational. You know, it just passes from family to family, and they just expect to, you know, be successful. And he was upset with it. So, you know, my big thing is I don't think I really thought about it until that comment was made.
So, we're about to wrap up. I got just two more questions. The first one is, looking back over your exhaustive experience, you know.
I don't consider it exhausting, but
you know,
I found it challenging, exciting.
Yeah. I should say plethora of experiences.
My journey.
Yeah, your journey. Now, in hindsight, 2020 vision, what would you have done differently?
I don't think I would do anything differently.
Why not?
If anything, I think the only thing I would have done differently is not worked on my feel, okay, because Exit 18, ExxonMobil came to me, they talked me into it, and my feel said not do it, and I let them talk me into it. I would say that would be my only...
You didn't trust your gut?
I didn't trust my gut. Like, my gut said, no, don't do it. But I let them talk me into it because I thought they should know better. They run the numbers, that kind of thing. But at the same time, I didn't lose money in that location, so I'm not like overly upset about it. But it goes back to, if your gut tells you something, I will run with it, and I've never challenged my gut since then.
You also have investment property. We haven't touched upon that. I know you said your father got into property later on in life. Was that inspirational, motivational for you? I mean, how did you also get into property?
I got into property before my father.
Actually, really?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So
he learned that from you.
well, he could learn a few more things. And I love my dad, but again, I say it, and I hate to say it that way, but I do run on feel. I really do. So it started with he was going to lose money on a duplex in Waterford.
Okay.
And he was going to lose about $20,000 if he sold it. I decided, well, okay, that's fine. I'll buy it from you. I bought it for what was owed. We just rolled it into...
Assumable loan.
Assumable loan,
okay.
Yep.
Assumable loan, for those that don't know, you have traditional financing conventional financing where you put down 20% and you finance the 80% on a home loan. You have FHA, you have those different things. An assumable loan is when there's already a loan in place. Let's say you bought something for $100,000. A person has paid off $50,000 of it, through time, and they only own $50,000 on it. So they can come back and say, hey, well, I'll sell it to you for $70,000. So, but with the caveat, I assume the existing debt from the bank. So if that was at a very good interest rate, like what we had, let's say 3 years ago, or even 2 years ago.
Now back then, we're taking.
Yeah.
It was 7%
but I'm giving an example. so you might see that happen today if a bank allows it, because now I can assume the $50,000 at the 3%, which they did the loan, and I just continue payment. And I give the other $20,000 to the owner, right? Because say I sold it for $70,000.
Yes.
But assumable means I assume the existing loan. Nothing changes.
Correct.
All right. So you do this assumable loan.
So I do assumable loan, and so I took that over. I had that for about, I want to say I had that about maybe 4 years, maybe not even, maybe 3.5. But the whole market changed again. Mm-hmm. So, you always have to ride these markets.
You were at 7% then, right?
At that particular time, I want to say it was like 6.75, 7.25. Mm-hmm. That was not unreasonable back then. And I think
I guess it's not unreasonable now.
Well, we've been spoiled for a long time. But also homes didn't cost what they cost,
True.
So this is back, again, it was all around late 90s, I would say late 90s when I took the duplex. But I sold it. Markets changed. I was moving to Saratoga. I didn't want rental property in Waterford at this particular time. Markets changed. So I ended up making $25,000.
So your father sold it to you at a loss virtually, if you just assumed the loan.
Yes.
So everything your father passes on, you make money off.
Oh, yes. So FYI, Dad, I hope you need to see this, because we need to talk. But yes.
Do you have anything else to sell?
Do you have anything else? I'm in the market.
Right.
No, it is really funny though. It's just it's timing. It can be timing. So there's a lot of different ways to make money. It's on for me it's been field timing, all of those things. But so that was my first. That was my probably first adventure. Then I bought my first home. I made $25,000 on that house within 3.5 years. Again, timing. Mm-hmm. Interest rates were higher. They were 6.75, 7% on that time. I bought my first house when I was 21 years old, just before my 21st birthday, actually. And then when I had sold, I bought another property that the builder, he got in some financial troubles, that sort of thing. Won't name names. But he got in some financial troubles, bought that house for $150,000, went in and completely finished it because it was 80% finished at that particular time. So we went in and finished it, sold that house 4 years later for $375,000. I bought that house for $150,000. So I made a good profit there.
1031 exchange?
Yes. So that's how I got into the other property. So there was a gentleman.
Wait, let me tell him. Yeah, so a 1031 exchange is when you make a profit on a sale, you put the money with a 1031 exchange agent. They hold it. You have a certain amount of time where you can roll 100% of those funds into another like-kind property. You do this to avoid paying capital gains taxes.
Correct. Yes.
Because if you make a profit, then Uncle Sam wants their piece, even though they didn't do anything for you.
Right.
But in order to bypass that, you put it into an agency that does 1031 exchanges, and you can roll 100% of those proceeds into the next property without
Correct.
having to pay the capital gains tax.
Correct, yes.
So you do a 1031 exchange. Go
So
ahead.
I do a 1031 exchange on my main home, and but before that, I was looking. My daughter got into riding. I was kind of tired of spending my whole weekend at a barn.
Okay.
And so I decided, I'm going to look at some property. So what did I do is I went up to Greenfield Tax Maps, and I'm very creative. So I went to down at Greenfield Tax Maps, and I looked at all the largest pieces of property owned by single individuals, and then I looked at their age bracket.
Mm-hmm.
So what ended up happening is I started looking at and knocking on doors and seeing who wanted to sell, who didn't want to sell.
So wait a minute. You're on foot like a politician, right?
Like a politician.
Boots to the ground. Hey, you're old right now. You're thinking about retiring. Do you want to sell your house to me?
I said it way nicer than that. Way nicer than that. Yeah. So it was really like feeling people out, because you know what the big thing is, this is a lot of times what happens, and this goes back to my farming roots, okay? People who own big parcels like that and who have farmed them, they've been generational, they don't want them developed, okay? Mm-hmm. They want somebody else who can appreciate the land, who can appreciate their values, and you have to convince them that's what you want to do. You're not a developer. Right. And I wasn't a developer.
And offering them money is
and money is a big incentive.
Right. Wait, you don't have to pay these taxes anymore, and I'm going to give you money for it. Right. Yeah. This is a great motivator.
It is a great motivator.
But it's very impressive that you literally say, hey, I'm going to look at the tax map, figure out who these owners are, who own these large...
Get to know them.
Yeah, get to know them, and I'm going to go boots to the ground. I'm going to knock on the doors and just strike up a conversation. So you find a piece of property.
So I find a piece of property, and this gentleman who was a tough nut. Oh my gosh! And he.
Well, you should be already prepared.
I'm already prepared.
Right, you had to tough nut with the rug lady.
Yeah. So it was fine. So it was really funny. I actually offered him. He had this teeny little postcard stapled to a tree. I happened to be driving this property, and he had this tiny little postcard tape, and it said "for sale by owner," and it was 175 acres. And I called him, offered him exactly what he wanted. He still didn't want to take it, so he thought
he didn't really want to sell.
Not really, no. And it literally took me a good year, maybe even a year and a half. Now, mind you, I am delivering this man pies, cookies, catfish dinners, you name it. I am doing it. I mean, literally.
So you're raising a family, doing businesses.
And I'm delivering pies to this man. like no joke. I was delivering pies. And finally, he called me after this ended up being a relationship of this give, I'm just giving all the pies. He's just giving me slack. And finally he said, you know what, Catherine, I've decided to sell it to you. And again, top dollar, not a dime off. And in the meantime, I was selling one property, what he wanted. I had to sell another property, and I did a double like-kind exchange to wrap it all into one. Mm-hmm. And while that was going on, he accepted interest-only payments from me until I had that all wrapped up, because it's such a timing. Mm-hmm. Oh, he made more money. He wasn't a dummy.
He was a savvy seller.
He was something, that guy. Yeah. But I wanted it that much, and so I was able to get everything timed properly, and he was happy, I was happy. But it was really funny, because after that, every big builder in this area came to me and was like, how did you make that happen? Because they were all buying the same property. But it just happened. It worked that way.
So my last question for this podcast, because I can do this for hours, such a great wealth of knowledge that you bring to the table and experience. What advice would you give to other female entrepreneurs who are either just starting out or they have the aspirations to begin? I mean, what advice? I mean, you've been doing it for decades successfully. You're making money on every hand. every property, every business. You at the
Doesn't
point,
mean it wasn't easy. It
absolutely,
was not easy.
right?
It was
right.
hard.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
now you're sitting successfully, comfortably.
Yeah.
Multiple homes, multiple properties, businesses still going strong. What advice would you give to that next generation of females coming through?
Next generation, whether it be females or males, I would say, really follow your feel. Educate yourself. Really look at different opportunities. Because today there's so many different ways to make money, so many different ways, and I think that people need to be a little bit more motivated and have some freedoms that being self-employed gives you. Now, doesn't mean it's not feast or famine. It is feast or famine. It just depends on how you make and choose your lifestyle. Again, I always say I'm very fortunate. Don't get me wrong. I feel like I was at the right time, right place. I had the right energy, and I'm very blessed that way. I'm not going to lie about that. But I also want to always tell people, don't be discouraged if somebody says no. Keep at it, because eventually a door will open up if you're persistent. I also say, you have to look at whatever path is the best fitting for you, whether it be education, whether it be learning, boots on the ground. That's just how I learned. Doesn't mean it's for everybody, but I am a big pro for that. I'm not going to lie. But you also have to work. I mean, you have to work. You have to be motivated.
Thank you. This has been great. You have the ambitious, don't take no for an answer. Very smart, Catherine Carolla.
Thank you, everybody.
This is Doc from the Ebony Ivory Podcast, saying thank you for tuning in, and we will bring you many, many more interviews with entrepreneurs, investments, cigars, and everything in between. Have a great day.
Take care.